Hey YouTube, it's Dimitri, and today we're going to talk about H1Bs. I've kind of alluded to this. I'm going to talk about this probably in the grander scheme of just immigration, so we'll talk a little bit about that. This was asked by a subscriber. Anna mentioned, hi Dimitri, what are your thoughts about the H1B discourse recently as a manager and hiring manager? So for those of you new to this channel, I work in quantitative finance. To give you perspective on this, we're probably looking at 75 or higher percentage of all quants in the US market are not Americans. There's no other way to put it. But we heavily rely on the H1B system. It's similar to tech. I know there's a lot of discourse going on with this. But anyways, let me dive on into this. I don't think this is really that complicated. I don't even think this should be controversial. I do think there needs to be a lot of changes, which I don't know, you guys can put in the comments below if you agree or disagree on these. But let me just take a step back for this. So there is a book called Operation Paperclip, which I would highly recommend you guys read. I'll maybe put a little tag to this. I believe I did a book review on it. It's historically about kind of, the United States bringing in Nazis during the fall of, Germany in World War II. I'm talking about the controversy around that. This is not really like that, but it's alluding to this in the sense that we are trying to bring in top talent into the United States here. Now, I think you need to step back from a economic perspective and look at the entire economy as well. The United States needs to look at the immigration as a whole this is the current situation we have, right? These are all the people we have. This is the industry we have. This is where our competitive edge lies. This is where our weaknesses lie. How do we make America great again, right? For those of you that are MAGA supporters, a little alluded to that. But what I'm trying to get at with this is we need to seriously take a step back, whether you support different political parties or not. How do we make America even better, right? You might say, oh, America's already great. Fine. How do we make it better? We need to take an inventory of what we do have and what we don't have and how we need to improve that. There's been a lot of discussion around jobs in the United States, and I think we need to realize, even from the quant finance space here, the economy is bigger. There are a range of jobs from, jobs that are more manual labor, jobs that are more, hands-on skill-based, all the way up through different types of service jobs. And service jobs could be anything from flipping patties at McDonald's, all the way through financial services, which is what a lot of quants do, right? We are providing a service. There's really no difference here. But I think Americans in the United States as a whole needs to step back and realize, where do we want to bring in immigrants to fill these? And more importantly, where do we want to fill jobs with Americans? America first should be the mentality we always go towards. America, America, America. We need to focus on building America back better, greater, and stronger. I think doing this again economically, it's hard. Guys, this is hard. This isn't like an easy wave your hands, quick solution. But we need to figure out what's going on here. Where are we seeing pockets? Where are we seeing issues? How do we go about this strategically? I know there are some industries, I believe, like the automotive industry. I think a lot of the trades as well, at least what I've been experiencing. So for those of you that don't know, I do a lot of my own trade work. I hate hiring people to do it. But yes, I rebuild cars and do electrical. And I built this entire shop that I'm sitting in here on the second story of. We need to look at this and figure out, do we have a training issue? Do we have a regulatory issue? So sometimes you have too much regulation that actually prevents new entrants into the markets here. So you might have an oligopoly. You might have just these government frictions that make it challenging to even get in or service it. Minimum wage, I'm going to hit at here. Minimum wage sucks. It is awful. We need to get rid of minimum wage. We need to allow the market to set wages as accordingly. One of the big drivers of inflation, which nobody wants to talk about, is that minimum wages have been going up the last 5 years significantly. And yet when we see the minimum wages increasing, we see prices of basic goods increasing because it's more expensive to produce these sorts of goods here. So we need to assess the economy as a whole in regards to the immigration piece. So we need to figure out who we want in and who we don't want in. The United States is built on immigrants. I get that, right? I'm from immigrants, obviously. We have come to the United States, again, legally, through legal processes, through going through paperwork and, trying to get here and, make a better life. We want people that have American values to come over to the United States. We don't just want to say, hey, let's open the door to whoever and try to bring people in. This needs to be part of the filtration process of how we bring people in as well. If you bring in a bunch of people from other countries that have other beliefs, like pro-supporting communism, whole other thing here. I've worked with a lot of internationals over the years. Women's rights is one of those things that shocks me. You talk to people from other countries and they're like, well, I don't understand why this is bad or wrong. And you're like scratching your head like, this is common sense sort of topics here. We need to bring people in though that are good people. Good people need to be brought in. And then we also need to figure out what skills gaps we have. How do we fill those? How do we go about assessing this with both skills training internally as well as bringing in external talent? Now, getting into the high-end rigor academic portion of quant finance, it is a nightmare. I would argue currently we have too many H1Bs. Yes, we need to completely reduce these numbers. There are way too many H1Bs coming into the country. The process on how we go about selecting them also needs to be fixed. You start to look at this now from quant finance perspective on why this is such a mess, right? A bunch of students internationally, they want a better life. They want to work in quant finance. I will note many students are coming from their countries to the United States for a degree and want to go home, but they want to work for a few years to get US experience because that's valued in their country and then go home. I would weed all these people out. We do not want you here working 1 or 2 years. We only want people coming to the United States to get H1Bs, to have full-time jobs that want to stay and live in the United States. Why do I say this? Because you are taking the spot that somebody else could have gotten that wants to stay here long-term. You've wasted that spot. We've gotten a few years of work, and then you just leave, right? It's like we're spending time and money to bring you in, and then you're wasting it for somebody else here. So think about somebody else in your country, often someone that doesn't have a lot of money that wants to build a better life here. Most of the individuals that come here, work for a few years and go back, are those are the wealthier individuals from these countries. It's a networking thing. Anyways, I would weed these people out. If you want to go back to your home country, just don't come here. We do not want you to come here. I don't think you add much value. Those that want to come here for purely educational reasons, I'm a huge supporter. You want to come, get a US education, US degree, take that education back to your home country. Awesome. Let's do it. Let's build, just better academic communities. But for those that are wanting the work visas, I do not think you should be coming if you have the intentions of only being here for a year or two. Now, the other issue is how do you determine who's going to come in besides that? Everyone's going to lie and say, oh yeah, I'm going to stay there long term. And then they all go home. A piece of that is going to be figuring out how do we do the acceptance process? Do we allow the universities to make that decision? I would say no. The United States should not be allowed to do this on an educational perspective. The reason is universities have been grossly incentivized to do bad things, right? We've just given free money and a lot of funding internally. Too many people are going to college that shouldn't be going to college. The quality of education has been dropping significantly, which is one reason why we are going out to bring in external talent. That's not to say that there are not smart Americans. I know that's been a debate piece as well. No, America has great, intelligent people, but we need to go abroad and get smart people as well. But we need to figure out how we're going to do that, right? How do we assess those candidates? That needs to be a whole discussion, right? I'm not going to tell you, go get these people from these places. There is a huge shortage of really smart people. Now, I'm going to put that in there with a caveat of where you set the bar as smart is going to change your perspective on that, right? If you have a low bar, everybody's smart, you could bring in lots of people. But that being said, when you lower the bar, we have tons and tons of smart people in the United States as you lower that bar as well. Finding really sharp academics and practitioners who have that blend. I was talking to an executive here about a week or two ago. They were talking about this exact problem. They're like, Dimitri, it's so hard to find people that are brilliant academically, but have the entrepreneurial spirit. Like, this is the American spirit. A lot of us is the entrepreneurial drive. I don't necessarily think everyone needs to have the combination, but getting that sort of combination of entrepreneurial spirit and academics and bringing in the rigor of academia with the practical applications of the real world and figuring out how to marry these two is rare. There have been other discussions I've seen, which I agree with. We do not have, we want to bring in the best and the brightest in all these different STEM fields as well. So again, there are tons of people publishing garbage research. The academic communities, I think, have kind of fallen off the wayside. They're chasing dollars. The United States is just funding. The educational system, I feel like, is often broken. There are many things that need to be corrected and fixed. That's a whole other video and a whole other discussion. But how you get to that is challenging. How you fix these sorts of problems. Again, I don't know how we're going to do it. I wish I had a solution for you guys, but there needs to be some sort of assessment on how we bring in top talent to fill those spots that are needed. Now, why this impacts H1Bs and why I think the H1B system is broken now is that we, the universities, have brought in tons of students. They're just bringing them in the droves. And then you get your education here and you graduate, and a lot of you can't find a job. So you got to go home. That's indicating we have too many being brought in. Right? We are bringing too many people in for jobs that we have. This also indicates we have not been thinking about this very strategically. Do we have jobs that we do need filled? How many do we have? And how do we bring in enough talent to fill that role? If we're bringing in 2 to 3 times what we need, it's a waste of time and money, right? Should be pretty common sense here. Why this frustrates me as well is you see individuals that are great, bright individuals we bring in through these programs. They come to the United States, they study, they're trying to get into these H1B, they're trying to get a job here, they're trying to get work visas, and they can't find work and they end up having to go home. Or more frustrating from a hiring perspective is I hire someone, I sponsor them, which costs companies money, and then I can't keep them because they didn't get selected in our stupid lottery. Drives me insane. So the company finds a great talent, they find a great fit, it meets all these requirements we're talking about, they're bright, they train well, we're investing a bunch of money into these individuals to make our company better, which makes the economy better, which makes the United States better, and then it's like, oh, by the way, you didn't get pulled for a lottery because, again, we have way too many people coming in H1Bs, and so now we're having to say, hey, I know that you are a great candidate. I know that you're brilliant. I know that you're bright. We love to keep you here. I really will do anything to keep you. Oh, but the government's kicking you out because they have a stupid lottery system. And it takes way too long. For those of you that don't know, I think like some countries are 7 years. Some countries are 11 years. I won't even get into these details. It is frustrating. Now, if you want to get down the tech rabbit hole a little bit, I try to stay out of this. I try not to get into the tech side. There are mass droves of people in tech who are not working. We are bringing in friends. This is a very non-American ideology. There are specific groups and countries, and I could name them, but I'm not. I don't want to come off as racist here. But there are specific countries that will literally just hire their own people. So they say, I am from this country. I need more of these people. And they keep hiring more of these people. Quant finance, I would argue, is one of these areas as well. I have seen teams, same as tech. I've seen teams though that are built out and it's like you have 8 or 10 employees, 8 to 10 employees, right? Let's just say 10 employees. 80% of them are all the exact same nationality. Now, that doesn't mean that the manager is racist. It doesn't mean you have an issue, but it means you should look into it. Why do we have this? Is it that we are bringing in enough H1Bs from specific countries? Are they specialized in those areas? Or more specifically, I can sit and name off different departments and banks and say this bank caters to the Chinese. This department and bank caters to the Indians. We had a Russian one, for example, like Eastern Europeans, Ukrainian, and Russians. Brought in a ton from them. We had a small team from people from Nepal. Do the math, guys. Do the math. How many people do you think live in Nepal? How many H1Bs do you think there are? How many do you think there are in this quant finance space? And magically, how did you have a team of, I think it was like 4 or 5 people, and 3 out of those 5 were all from Nepal? I mean, mathematically, it's happening. We're not looking for the best talent. We're just bringing in friends and family. We're bringing in countrymen, but we're refusing to bring in the best talent here. So now this is going by the wayside with this. Again, we need to have more focus on the US piece, and there is part of this with the H1B that we have to go through. So when we do hire for H1B, I have to prove that I could not find a good qualified American to fit that role. It is hard to find really good qualified Americans in the quant finance space. Why? We've talked about this in the past in other videos. Americans that have STEM, skills and degrees often go into that field. It is very, very new to have a quant finance undergrad. They have not existed 5, 6, 7 years ago, something like that. They weren't there. We just have graduate degrees. So when you look at these feeds, you say, okay, you have a bunch of math students going into math, engineers going into engineering, stats going into stats. But why would you take all these students from math, stats, and all this and say, hey, you're going to switch them into quantitative finance, which seems like a different field, but it's a blend of all these skills. How do you bring all of that together? And then I have to argue and explain that when we go through the process, and now we have to hire lawyers. It is an expensive process here. So that is part of that. Now, the pay gap and the pay differential, I can't vouch for any of this because I don't pay my employees differently. So I don't really know how this is working. I know this has been a complaint with the tech industry. There's been arguments that, H1B is a slave labor process here and they're paying them less, and how dare you pay them less in this whole thing. I think you need to look at total comp to start with here. So if you're going to compare this and try to do an analysis, if I have to pay an extra $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 for all these legal fees, for the H1B process, for all the lawyers, for that, how much is that going to cost? You should be making less than someone else at the exact same level because that is an additional cost. This is the exact same argument as me saying, hey, I'm going to pay someone slightly less because I have a lot of expenses for like moving expense. Like I'm bringing somebody in, I don't know, from like New York City or from somewhere else and I have to, move them. I have travel and expenses. This all comes from my financial budget. I don't have an option not to do this. Now, I'm not going to say, hey, I'm going to dock out your pay by that full amount, but you might say, okay, the first year we're going to have their pay a little bit lower with the expectation that I'll match and bring that up. Again, it's apples to apples. I am paying a cost to an employee, which is the salary. It's all the different benefits, health, 401k, all that. All that comes into the picture on budgeting and financial, smartness about how you run your business. You can't just say we're going to hire all H1Bs, we're going to pay them all this exorbitant fees with all the Americans. Plus, when you have a big firm and you've got, $5,000, $10,000 in fees, I'm going to multiply that by 100 employees and then think somehow that we're going to get free money from the business somehow to cover this, right? There has to be some give and take with this. Now, that being said, I'm also going to lay in here a little bit because this drives me insane where people say, I want equality of income. I want equality of salaries. That's fine, but assessing an individual human's value is extremely hard. Okay? We're all not all the same. I am sorry. This is complete rubbish. I don't know where this woke left ideology has been coming from, but this is complete garbage. Two individuals, same job, same company, do not have the same value. I guarantee you that. There's no way you have the same value. Different employees have different characteristics. One employee might be a real go-getter. They take on new projects. They're learning all the time, right? And they're really moving and shaking and charging forward. Another employee might be sitting back saying, hey, I was asked to do these 5 things. I did these 5 things. The value between those two employees, drastically different. That employee that's moving and shaking and getting stuff done, they should be getting promotions. They should be getting paid more in the future. But also in their own role, you have pay ranges often in corporations. So you say, let's say you have an analyst in the quant space. It ranges between, I don't know, like 70 and like say $120,000 for that pay range, right? Different employees should be getting paid different amounts with the same title, because they have different value. They're adding different value to the firm here. Now, if you guys can prove and back out of this, and I'm not saying tech is not doing this, tech is very sketchy and very unethical from a lot of the people I've talked to in the tech space. Many of them even agree with me and say, yeah, I've seen these sketchy things happen. I agree. We should not be saying, hey, you're an international, we can get you for less labor or less cost. We're going to really lowball you on that. No, we should not be doing that. We should be treating you like an American. That, I think, is the whole premise of H1B. We should be bringing people that want to become Americans. We should train and educate them and treat them like one of us. And then we should get them citizenship and make them an American. That should be the whole process here. So in summary with this, I think we need to streamline the H1B process. I don't think we should be making candidates go through all this rigmarole once they're here, once they've paid for the education, going through these ridiculous lotteries. I think the United States needs to get a lot more tactical on who we are bringing in, why we're bringing them in, how we're bringing them in. The government needs to team up with the industries and figure out who needs what. That's a much smarter planning process here than just saying like, hey, we're going to accept X amount from each of these countries. Not a smart idea. Let's figure out who we need and why we need them. And then more broadly on immigration, who do we want in general, right? There are going to be pockets and fields we might not be able to fill in the US. Maybe we don't have the skill set. Maybe we don't have the training. Maybe to get to the training to get, the population up to fill those roles is going to take 25 years. If that's the case, we need to bring people in the meantime that can help with training and education. And we also need to bring in other talent to kind of fill that while we get to that position here. But even those immigrating, I think, would agree, if you're going to come to America, you want the America advantage. You want to be treated like an American. So I think we need to look at this from the American perspective predominantly, which is let's figure out how to make America better and great. Let's not figure out how to just bring in as many people as possible. And let's not figure out how to just bring in friends and family and all this nonsense just for the sake of it. Immigration should be solely based on making America great. It should not be based on, social ideologies and, you know, like, I don't know, this nonsensical hand wavy, like, we love everybody kind of thing that's been going around here. So that is my take on H1B. I'm a big fan of H1B. I hire a lot of internationals. I interview a lot of Americans as well. Again, it's, you know, trying to find the best candidate for the job. I'm not going to give you a leg up and say, oh, well, you're, you know, not as good as the American's not as good as this other candidate, and so therefore I'm going to give you the job. That is not how it works. We hire the best of the best for a reason here. And then finally, to hit on with the STEM thing, finding really genius, bright people is extremely hard. That was piece of the Operation Paperclip Dilemma, that book on bringing the Nazis over for the educational piece. They were awful people who committed awful crimes, and there's documentation and paperwork on them. But finding true brilliance was challenging, and they had medical breakthroughs, and they could add a lot to the United States in this, you know, in the realm of medicine and research and other fields of sciences. It's not cut and dry. That was a hard decision. I don't know where you should really sit on the fence on that, right? But I think that highlights kind of that challenge here with the immigration piece, which is, it's not that Americans are dumb. It's not that other countries are dumb. It's that there are very few geniuses around the world, and we need to go out there. The United States needs to really poach them and bring them to the United States and make them Americans, give them a better life, but also have them give back to the United States and build better companies in technology and medicine, and just build a better society, and more specifically, a better world. So anyways, that's my take. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And as always, until next time.